What's up, everyone? My name is a.d.king, your host of Well, This Is Awkward, the show. And today we are starting a new series that I created to connect the past to the present, titled Archival Conversations. You see, as young people today, we are always trying to change and inspire the world, but we have to remember that we weren't the first to do so. There are so many inspirational leaders who have come before us and been in our very exact shoes. So it's important to take their lessons learned, their experiences, their words of wisdom, and apply it to our work today as changemakers. This is the first episode in the series, and I couldn't imagine a better person to start us off, none other than the incomparable Naomi Ruth Barber King. A woman of great strength, courage, wisdom, and grace, Mrs. King is the widow of late, great a.d.king and the sister-in-law to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. She has dedicated her life to promoting and empowering the youth and women and advocating for nonviolent social change strategies as a way of life and entrepreneurship. There is so much I can say about this amazing woman, but let's save all of that for the episode. Please, everyone, welcome Ms. Naomi Ruth Barber King. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so very much for having me.
So, Mrs. King, you have dedicated your life to the betterments of the world and equality and justice for all. You have been a part of so many movements that we use as a blueprint today in how we organize for change, such as the Greensboro sit-ins in 1960, the 1963 Birmingham campaigns, the 1965 Selma campaign to vote. I can go on and on. Being an activist and committing yourself to the betterment of your community isn't an easy task and comes with a lot of pros and cons. What is it that made you want to commit your life to this duty, and what makes you want to continue?
With our five beautiful children, and I did get a chance to go to Washington, D.C. when Dr. King gave that famous speech, I Have a Dream speech. But other than that, I had to stay home and take care of our five beautiful children because my husband asked me to do that. However, I gave him all the support he needed so that when he came home, he would come home to a loving home after the stress of the movement activities, and they were extremely time-consuming, challenging, and maybe sometimes dangerous. Before any rally or whatever he had to participate in the marches, I would pray with him and ask our good God's amazing grace, guidance, and protection for a safe and impactfully rally protest. I knew the danger with the police using excessive force, water hose, bullet clubs, and sometimes guns. I would keep our children, nurture them, and keep them safe at home while A.D. would go on to organize and support the movement and his brother, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow. And you know something? Being able to be a support is just as important as being involved in the movement. It's support that keeps people going and feeling like they're able to continue in keeping the change that they want to see. You know, you have to be able to support those people because it comes with a lot. It does. So the next question that I wanted to pose to you is, there's this term coined by Moya Bailey, who is a scholar and an author, and she introduces the word misogynoir, meaning a dislike, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against Black women. It is the intersection of racism and sexism. We speak about Dr. King and your late husband, a.d.king, and all the things they have contributed to the civil rights movement, but we don't really hear much about the women that supported them, such as yourself. Like you mentioned, you were there to support. How did the women of the family contribute to the movement? And how did you navigate the world back then as a Black woman? Were there any times where you experienced the effects of misogynoir as a Black woman activist?
Let me answer you in this way. Women were very instrumental to the movement, and without women who supported their husband and participated, the movement would have been like a bird without wings. They held the families at home with loving care, hope for a better future, and that future was ignited with a burning desire to change their communities, nation, and the world from the three evils: racism, violence, militarism, and poverty. The burning desire for change was championed by the women and the children of the movement. Many times the children of the movement had to be in front of the line, properly trained with nonviolent strategies to sacrifice until victory is won. It was an economic decision for the children to lead because the children could not be kept in jail like adults, and definitely the women were the backbone of the movement. Without women's involvement, it would be very, very chaotic.
I love that you mentioned that. I really do. And you also talk about children, and I want to kind of bring it back to the present. You know, right now, as young African-American young people growing up today, we said there is a lot of things that have progressed, but there's still a lot of work to be done to truly gain equality for everyone. This generation is in the midst of a lot of problematic things occurring in politics to the plain ignorance of society. So I want to ask you, how do you recommend this generation of young activists and movement makers to be the change that they hope to see? And how does the a.d.king Foundation aid in that change?
You know, having said all that, national, that freedom is not permanently won. It had to be sustained by every generation. And every generation has to continue the struggle. And the torch must be passed to the next generation. It is up to the next generation to sustain the struggle. The a.d.king Foundation provides the means of empowering the younger generation and preparing to sustain the life struggle through nonviolent strategies, including conflict resolution as a way of life. These are provided through various activities: civil rights legacy, to civil rights legacy tour, elementary high school engagement series, partnerships with the law enforcement, and community policy, entrepreneurs through training, emerging leaders, and citizenship training. And you know, as I think about that, we must see to it that our children are involved and teach them through training so that they are better prepared to meet the oncoming and violence and activities.
Yes, and I truly believe that with foundations like the a.d.king Foundation, you guys are giving the resources and the tools for the youth of today to be the change of tomorrow. So thank you for that. Last but not least, the show is titled, Well, This is Awkward. And because we have all found ourselves in awkward situations at some point, I want to ask you, what is one of your most awkward moments that you can recall, whether that be through your childhood, your activism, or just everyday life?
That was very, very many awkward moments in my life. But to answer a question, the most awkward moment of my life, which I will never forget in a million years, was when I returned from Jamaica to identify and inspect the body of my deceased husband. It is still a constant reminder that justice delayed is justice denied. My Boaz, if you will, was murdered for his role in the civil rights movement. His death left me cold in my tracks, but my good God and his infinite mercies had my back, and today I am still making a difference in the struggle for sustaining our freedom through the a.d.king Foundation.
Well, Mrs. King, I want to say thank you so much because it's women like you who inspire me to even have a series like this. All the words of wisdom that you gave us really means a lot, and I hope the listeners are able to take it and apply it to their work as change makers today. So thank you so much for joining us today on Archival Conversations.
Thank you so very much for having me.